A farmer kneels in the mud of a Sichuan field, pulling a stone from the wall of the ditch he is digging. The stone is heavy in a way stone is not. He turns it in the light. It is jade. He is holding the edge of a civilization the official history of China did not include. The year is 1929. The place is a flat alluvial plain in the southwest of China, a few hours north of what will become the city of Chengdu. The farmer's name is Yan Daocheng. The piece in his hand is the first of nearly 400 jade objects that will come out of the same ditch by the end of that spring. He does not understand what he has found. Neither does anyone he shows it to. 57 years will pass before two pits open in the same field. Inside those pits, archaeologists will find bronze masks with eyes that protrude from the face like cylinders, heads with hammered gold leaf still clinging to the bronze beneath. A standing figure 2.5 meters tall, a tree of bronze nearly 4 meters high, broken into pieces and laid in layers of ash. The pieces will not look like anything else in Chinese art. They will be made in China in the same centuries as the Shang dynasty, whose oracle bones founded the official chronology. But they will not look like the Shang. They will not look like anything. The civilization that made them flourished for 7 centuries on the Chengdu plain. Then, around the year 1100 BC, it destroyed its own treasures, broke the bronzes, burned them, buried them in rectangular pits beside the city walls, and walked away. For 3,000 years, the memory survived in a regional gazetteer the imperial canon dismissed as folklore. A Jin dynasty historian had written down the name of a king with protruding eyes. Nobody read it as history. This is the story of what we call Sanxingdui, the 3 star mounds, and of the people who carried it across the silence. The farmer who first touched the thread in 1929. The archaeologist who watched the first bronze mask emerge in 1986. The same archaeologist, 36 years older, who is still kneeling at the edge of a pit in 2022, watching another bronze face appear under the brushes. Why did they break their own gods? Why did the canon refuse to see them? And what does it mean that the official history of a civilization is not the history, only the history that won the fight for the center? A farmer crouches in a paddy north of Chengdu. Late summer, the sun low and orange over the foothills to the west. He is pulling weeds from the flooded roots of the rice. His feet are bare in the standing water. The clay sticks to his ankles in a thick, warm slick, the color of wet ash. Behind him, eastward, the plain runs flat to the horizon. Ahead, west, the first ridges of the Himalayan front rise in silhouette against the pink sky. He is doing what farmers have done in this place for 4,000 years. The Chengdu Plain is a bowl. The Min River and its tributaries come down out of the western mountains and slow when they hit the flat, dropping the silt they have been carrying since the headwaters. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that silt has built a layer of fertile alluvial clay tens of meters deep. The mountains hold the bowl on the west and north. To the east, the Yangtze cuts its own valley toward the sea. This is one of the most fertile places on Earth. It is also one of the most enclosed. People have lived on the Chengdu Plain continuously since before writing existed in China. The plain fed them, and it fed everyone who came after them, and it is feeding the farmer in the paddy now, and it will go on feeding the megacity that is currently swallowing the paddy from the south. About 40 kilometers north of where the farmer is standing, the plain dips slightly. There is a low rise the local people call the 3 star mounds. Around that rise, buried under 3 to 4 meters of the same alluvial clay the farmer's feet are sunk into, there is a walled city. It covers 3.5 square kilometers inside its walls. The total site, including the satellite settlements, runs to about 12. The farmer does not know it is there. The dynasty that ruled this land in the Han period did not know it was there. The Tang poets who wrote about Sichuan did not know it was there. The plain has been waiting. In a stone room in the Egyptian delta, a scribe is writing on a sheet of papyrus laid flat on his thigh. It is midday. The room is hot. He dips the reed brush in iron gall ink and writes a column of receipts for grain delivered to the temple. He has been doing this since he was 8. In a courtyard in the city of Hattusa, on the high Anatolian plateau, a boy of 14 is kneeling over a slab of wet clay the color of pale honey. He is practicing the sign for bread. He has been making the same sign for an hour. In a workshop on the Chengdu plain, a potter sits cross-legged on a beaten earth floor, his hands black with clay. The vessel on the wheel in front of him is a tall pedestaled cup, walls thinner than the nail of his little finger, the surface burnished to the color of a wet river stone. The kiln behind him is warm. The light through the thatch is the same midday light falling on the scribe and on the boy. The year is around 1800 BC. The same sun is in 3 skies. In Egypt, the Middle Kingdom has fractured into the Second Intermediate Period. In Anatolia, the kingdom of Hattusa is rising. In Mesopotamia, the cities of the Tigris and Euphrates have been writing for over 1,000 years. In the Indus Valley, the great cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro are in their last centuries. In Caral, on the Peruvian coast, the pyramids have already been abandoned for 1,200 years. In the north of China, in the valley of the Yellow River, a settlement called Erlitou is approaching its peak. The Chinese textual tradition will later remember Erlitou's era as the Xia and the Shang, who follow them as the founders of historical China. And on the Chengdu plain, 1,000 kilometers to the southwest, the potter is working in a city that is doing none of those things and is not derived from any of them. It is not a province of the Shang. It is not a colony of anywhere. It is a civilization developing on its own terms. There is not one China at this moment. There are several. A man sits at a low table in a room in the Han capital of Chang'an. It is late at night. A single oil lamp burns at his elbow. The flame is small and steady. He is writing. His name is Sima Qian. He is the court historian of the Emperor Wu of Han. He has been working on this book for most of his adult life. I wished to examine the affairs of the past, he has written in the preface, and to investigate the principles of their success and failure, of their rise and decline. The strips of bamboo on the table in front of him are tied together with hemp cord into a long, flat scroll. He dips the brush in the inkstone and writes a single character, Shang Shang. He is composing the chapter on the dynasty that preceded his own by 1,000 years. He has the oracle bone tradition. He has the Zhou royal annals. He has the songs of the Book of Odes. He does not have everything. No historian has everything. He has to choose. The Shiji, the records of the grand historian, will be finished around the year 91 BC. Every dynasty after the Han will commission its own official history on the pattern he invents. The sequence he draws, Xia, then Shang, then Zhou, then the warring kingdoms, then the unification under Qin, will become the spine of Chinese historical memory for the next 2,000 years. What is on that spine is the Yellow River. The states he names are the states of the Central Plain. The kings he treats as historical are the kings of the north. The southwest is in the book. Sichuan is in the book. The region appears under the name Shu, and the kings of Shu appear briefly in a few lines as figures from a misty antiquity. They are not given the weight of history. They are given the weight of legend. Sima Qian was not lying. He was working from what he had. The Shiji is one of the great works of the human mind. It is also a choice. Every canon is a choice. The lamp burns. The brush moves. The other chinas wait outside the page. A man and his son are digging an irrigation ditch in a field on the Chengdu plain. It is morning. The light is still thin. The field is theirs. The family name is Yan. The father is called Dao Cheng, the son Qing. They are deepening a channel that will carry water to the wheel at the edge of the property. The son is swinging the hoe. He is younger and faster. The father is shoveling out what the son has loosened. The hoe comes down and strikes something that is not earth. The sound is wrong. It is short and dry and almost metallic. The son stops. The father comes over. He kneels in the soft brown clay of the ditch wall and works his fingers around the object. It comes out heavier than it should be. He turns it in the light. It is greenish and polished and cool against his palm in a way that makes him hold it longer than necessary. It is jade. He sets it on the edge of the ditch and goes back to the place where the hoe struck. There is another one underneath, and another beside that. By the end of that spring, 400 pieces of worked jade will come out of the ditch. The field is in a place the local people call Yueliangwan, Moon Bend, a curve in the small stream that runs through the village of Zhongxingchang. It is a quiet place. Nothing has ever happened in this field that anyone remembers. The Yan family does not know what the pieces are. They do not know who made them. They do not know that the carving on some of them is 3,000 years old. They take them home. They show them to neighbors. Some are kept. Some are buried again. Some, over the years that follow, will reach the antiquities market in Chengdu, where dealers will recognize the work as ancient and will not be able to place it. The discovery is reported in small ways in regional newspapers. Specialists notice. They write short articles. The pieces are cataloged as interesting and provincial and probably late. Then the country goes into the long darkness of the 20th century. The jade waits, the field waits, the man and the son finish the ditch. A man kneels in the dirt at the edge of a shallow pit. He has a small leather-bound notebook open on his left knee and a sharp pencil in his right hand. He is sweating through his shirt. The sun is the dry, hard sun of late spring in Sichuan, and the dust the workers' shovels are throwing up hangs in the air and settles on the open page. His name is David Crockett Graham. He is an American missionary and self-trained archaeologist attached to the West China Union University in Chengdu. The year is 1934. He has come to the field at Moon Bend because the rumors of the jade have not stopped. His Chinese workers excavate methodically. The pieces are like the ones from 1929. Worked jade, some stone tools, a few fragments of black pottery. Graham writes it all down. He publishes the report the following year. He suggests the site is a Neolithic regional culture, possibly linked to the legendary kingdom of Shu mentioned in old gazetteers. He does not know what is under his feet. The deepest his trench reaches is 1.5 meters. The city walls are 5 meters down, and the pits are deeper than that, and they are still 52 years away from being opened. He goes back to Chengdu. He writes other papers. He goes home to the United States. The site stays where it is. The country does not. In 1937, the Japanese invade. The university evacuates. The professors carry their library on barges up the Yangtze Gorges. The fields outside Guanghan are emptied of young men. Some come back, some do not. The Civil War begins. The new republic is declared in 1949. Land is redistributed. Brick factories are built across the country to support the new construction. One of those factories is built directly on top of the buried city at Moon Bend. For decades, it digs into the same alluvial clay that hid the pottery, hauling cartload after cartload out of what used to be the wall of the inner enclosure. It does not know what it is eating. The Cultural Revolution arrives in 1966 and lasts for 10 years. Archaeology is not what the decade is for. The site keeps waiting. In 1980, two men from the Sichuan Provincial Cultural Relics Bureau arrive at the brick factory with permission to dig. The older of the two men is standing on a low rise of grass, clipboard in his right hand, the other shading his eyes from the late morning sun. His name is Chen De'an. He is an archaeologist with the Sichuan Provincial Cultural Relics Bureau. Below him, a team of 15 is working a long trench. Behind him, 100 meters off, the brick factory is in operation. The chimney pours out a thin yellow smoke that smells faintly of coal. The hammers of the workers cutting bricks come across the field in irregular pulses. In the trench, the team has reached the top of what appears to be a wall. It is not a foundation for a house. It is too thick. The mud-rammed earth is the consistency of poured concrete, hardened by 3,000 years. Chen De'an writes the measurement on the clipboard. He walks 20 meters along the trench. The wall is still there. He walks another 20, still there. By the end of that field season and the next, the team has traced the outline. The wall runs in a rough rectangle for several kilometers. The enclosure it forms covers 3.5 square kilometers. Inside, there are house foundations, workshop floors, hearths. Outside the wall, but within a wider site boundary, there are more settlements running to a total of about 12 square kilometers. This is not a village. This is a walled city of the Bronze Age, larger than most of the Shang cities of the north, sitting on the Chengdu plain in a region the textual tradition had treated as a misty periphery. It does not match the pottery of the Shang. It does not match the bronzes of the Shang, because so far no bronzes have come up at all. Chen De'an and his colleagues name it after the local landmark, the 3 star mounds, Sanxingdui. They write up the preliminary report. The Bureau accepts the designation. This is a distinct Bronze Age culture, contemporary with the Shang, but not derived from them. The team does not know yet that what they have found is only the city. The pits are 6 years away. The factory keeps cutting bricks. A man is crouched at the edge of a freshly opened pit. It is 8 in the morning and already hot. The sun is direct on his back. His white short-sleeved shirt is sticking to him between the shoulder blades. He is in his mid-30s. His name is Chen Xiandan. He is the lead archaeologist of the rescue dig. The pit was not planned. Yesterday morning, workers at the brick factory had been digging for clay on the south side of the site. Just outside the wall, the team mapped in 1981. Their shovels brought up fragments of ivory and pieces of jade. The foreman knew enough by now to stop and call the Bureau. The team was on site within hours. Now the pit is a rectangle a little over 1 meter wide and nearly 5 meters long. They have brought it down through about 1.5 meters of clay. At the bottom, embedded in a layer of dark gray ash, the first whole objects are emerging. Elephant tusks, long, slightly curved, the ivory, cracked but intact, burned animal bones underneath them. And then, as the brushes work down through the ash, the first bronze comes into view. It is a head, roughly life-sized. The features are not showing. Chen Xiandan does not say anything. He watches the brush move across the bronze cheek, then nods once to the man holding it. The head is lifted out and passed up. The team works through the day. By evening, they have brought up the first count of objects: bronze heads, jade blades, a gold staff, 1.5 meters long, covered in fine engraved figures of fish and birds, and a king's face, more ivory, more ash. Around 300 items will come out of this pit. The bronze does not look like the bronze of Anyang. It does not look like the bronze of Erlitou. The faces have features the team has not seen in any other Chinese site. Chen Xiandan stays at the edge of the pit until the light fails. The team has stopped working. The objects are wrapped and labeled in the field tent. He does not know yet that this pit is the smaller of two. 30 meters away, under a thin skin of clay, the second pit is waiting. A man is crouched on a low platform of rough wooden planks laid across the edge of a second pit. The sun is at the top of the sky. It is the second of 2 midsummer days. Chen Xiandan has not slept much. The first pit closed 3 weeks ago. This one was opened 5 days ago, 30 meters from the first, on the same alignment, the same sacred ground. He is watching the team work the bottom of the pit with soft brushes. They have come down through nearly 2 meters of stratified ash, ivory, and burned bone. Now they are at the last layer. The brushes are moving across something large and metallic. A green shape begins to surface in the ash. It is a face. The eyes are not eyes. They are cylinders. They come out of the bronze sockets and extend forward perhaps 16 centimeters from the cheek. The mouth is wide and stretches almost from ear to ear in a flat closed line. The ears are large and pointed, swept back like fins. The face is the size of 2 human faces side by side. Chen Xiandan does not say anything. He leans forward slowly on the planks. He puts one hand flat against the wood for balance. The mask is lifted out by 4 people. It is heavier than anyone expected. They lay it on a sheet of clean canvas on the grass beside the pit. The pigment in the nostrils and the lips and the inner ears, when the ash is brushed away, is red. Cinnabar. The mask has been painted to taste, to smell, to hear. Behind it, in the layers underneath, the pit begins to give up the rest of what was buried there. Another mask, larger. Then a head with hammered gold leaf still adhering to the bronze of its face. Then another. Then a standing human figure, life-sized, 2.5 meters tall on its base, hollow cast, with hands curved as though it had once held something that did not survive. Then in pieces, laid in deliberate layers across the bottom of the pit, the trunk and branches and bronze birds of a tree 4 meters tall. Around 800 objects will come out of Pit 2 before it is closed. Together with Pit 1, the total approaches 1,100. Nothing like the masks exists in the rest of Chinese art. Not in the Shang, not in the Zhou, not in the cultures the textual tradition knows about. The team stops working as the sun goes down. The objects are laid out on canvas across the field. The protruding eyes face up at the sky. Within months, the photographs will be on the front pages of newspapers in Beijing, in Tokyo, in Paris, in New York. A foreign press caption will call the find the 9th wonder of the world. The Chinese textbooks will begin to be rewritten. Bronze Age China was not one civilization, it was several. And one of them did not look like the others. The bronzes were made here, in China, by Chinese hands. They were made to look like something the canon had no place for. The fight for the center of Chinese history opens up. We are nearly halfway. Let us look at what we have. A walled city of 3.5 square kilometers on the Chengdu plain. Black pottery, fine jade, mud-rammed walls, 5 meters thick. Bronze masks with cylindrical eyes and red-painted lips. A gold staff, a bronze tree 4 meters high. 1,100 objects pulled out of 2 pits in the summer of 1986. A civilization that flourished for 7 centuries in parallel with the Shang of the Yellow River and was as technically sophisticated as the Shang and looked nothing like them, and a textual tradition that did not include it. Sima Qian, writing in the 1st century before our era, gave the Shu kings a few lines and treated them as legend. 2 questions are open now. The first is the question of the bronzes themselves. Why did the people who made them break them deliberately, burn them, and bury them in pits? They were not destroyed by an enemy. They were destroyed by the city itself. The second is the question of the silence. If a civilization this large existed in the southwest of China, why did the imperial canon not see it? The answer to the second question is in a book that no one read as history. Hold the masks in your mind. We will come back to them. A woman sits at a low metal table under fluorescent light in a laboratory in Chengdu. It is the end of the afternoon. She is wearing a white cotton lab coat and thin cloth gloves. Spread on butcher paper in front of her, in the order they came up out of Pit 2, are a medium-sized bronze mask, 3 bronze heads without bodies, and a dozen fragments of what will eventually be reassembled as the trunk of the bronze tree. She is working on one of the heads. The face has a coating of dark ashy crust over the bronze. She is using a soft sable brush and a small bowl of distilled water to lift the crust grain by grain. Under the crust, in the nostrils of the head, a thin red line begins to appear. She lays the brush down. Cinnabar, the same as in the large mask. The pigment has been packed into the nostrils, into the corners of the lips, into the inner curves of the ears. It is not decoration, it is offering. A French sinologist, working from the photographs, will write that the cinnabar in the masks is not coloring. It is something offered to the head, so that the head can taste and smell and hear, so that the head can breathe. The bronzes of Sanxingdui were not statues. They were active objects, made to participate in the religious life of the city. The standing figure, 2.5 meters tall, hollow cast in one of the most technically difficult bronze pours of the ancient world, held something in its outstretched hands that did not survive. Probably a tusk, possibly a branch. The figure was the officiant of a ceremony whose form is lost. The tree, 4 meters tall, with bronze birds perched on its branches, and a coiled dragon descending its trunk, may have been a cosmological model, a representation of the world axis, a ladder for spirits. The masks with the protruding eyes may have represented the king named in a regional chronicle as Kan Kong, the first king of Shu, the one whose eyes were muzong, protruding. There are masks of beaten gold. There is a staff 1.5 meters long, sheathed in gold, engraved with the king's face, and with arrows piercing birds and fish. The metallurgy is Bronze Age. The iconography is unique. This was a religious civilization with a complete visual language of its own. We do not yet know what most of it meant. We have the words of one book. A man sits at a low writing table in a wooden room in Sichuan. It is night. A single oil lamp burns at his elbow. The light is soft and yellow, and the cold draft from the window keeps making the flame lean. He is wrapped in a quilted robe. His name is Chengdu. He is the compiler of a regional history. He has spent years collecting what survives in his province. Local genealogies, the records of small kingdoms absorbed into the empire, the oral traditions of the elders. The dynasty he serves is the Jin. The century is the 4th of our era. The civilization at Sanxingdui has been gone for 1,500 years. He dips the brush in the inkstone and writes a single character, Shu. Then he writes the names of the 4 ancient kings of Shu, Kankong, silkworm bush. The first, Boguan, cypress irrigator. The second, Yufu, fish cormorant. The third, Duyu, cuckoo. The fourth. Beside the name Kankong, he writes 2 more characters, Muzong. The phrase can be read as vertical eyes or as protruding eyes. Philologists will argue about which for 1,600 years. He writes it down because the tradition says it. The book will be called the Huayang Guoji, the records of the lands south of Mount Hua. It will be preserved. It will be copied. It will be shelved in monastery libraries. It will not be read as history. The imperial canon descends from the Shiji of Sima Qian. The Shiji put the Shang and the Zhou and the central plain at the spine. The Huayang Guoji is in another category, a gazetteer, a book of local matters. The kings it names are figures whose dates cannot be fixed and whose existence cannot be verified. The protruding eyes are read as folkloric description. For 1,700 years, the book sits in libraries. In 1986, 2 pits open in a field at Moon Bend. Bronze masks come out. The eyes protrude. Someone reaches back to the shelf. A man stands at the edge of a rectangular pit dug fresh into the soil at the foot of the city wall. It is dusk. The light is going. A large fire burns on the stone slab a few paces from the pit, the flames orange and tall in the failing light. The man is older. His robe is heavy and dark. His hands have worked bronze. His name is not preserved. Around him, in concentric rings, the city has gathered. Hundreds of figures in dark cloth. Nobody is speaking. The only sound is the fire. At his feet, laid out on a long mat woven from river reeds, are the objects. Bronze masks, heads, the gold-leafed faces, small ritual blades of jade, elephant tusks. The tree of bronze, 4 meters tall, has been taken down from wherever it stood and lies disassembled in sections beside the mat. The standing figure of 2.5 meters is upright at the head of the row, looking out over the pit. He lifts the first mask. It is heavy in his hands. The protruding eyes catch the firelight. He does not say anything. There is no chant. The tradition that knew the words is the tradition that is performing the act. He brings the mask down hard against the edge of the stone slab. The bronze rings. The mask splits. He lifts the next piece. The same. Through the night, the breaking continues. Pieces are passed forward from the back of the assembly. Heads are dented. Blades are snapped. The bronze tree is broken into the segments in which it will be found 3,000 years later. The objects are passed over the fire. Some are scorched. Some are blackened entirely. Some come out still warm and are laid into the pit in deliberate layers on top of beds of ash from the fire itself. The standing figure is lowered last, on ropes, by 6 men. The ivory is placed across the top like a final lid. Earth is shoveled in. The pit is closed. The same is done 30 meters away, with the contents of what will be called Pit 1. Different proportions of objects, the same gestures. There is no battle. There is no enemy at the gates. The walls of the city are intact. The The fields are still being worked. The destruction is a decision made from inside and carried out with care. Why? The honest answer is that we do not know. There are theories, a response to a great flood or an earthquake, a change of religion within the city, a formal closing of one ritual era and the opening of another, a transfer of the sacred center to a new place, to Jinsha, 40 kilometers away, where the same iconography continues at a smaller scale. The bronzes had life. They tasted the cinnabar. They heard. They breathed. To break them and bury them with this much care, in fire and in order, was not destruction, it was a return. The city, having buried what it had made, did not continue. A goldsmith sits cross-legged on a low wooden bench under a thatched lean-to. Morning light comes in sideways. In front of him, on a small block of polished stone, lies a thin sheet of beaten gold, the size of an open hand. He is working its edge with a small bronze hammer, tapping the rim flat against the stone. The place is Jinsha. The year is around 900 BC. He is 40 kilometers southwest of the city that used to be at Moon Bend. He was born in the generation after the breaking. His parents walked here as children, carrying what they could carry when the place at Moon Bend was closed. Now their grandchildren cast small bronzes and beat thin gold. The piece under his hammer is a sun disk. 4 birds circle a central spiral. The motif comes from the old place. The scale does not. The disk is the size of a hand. The bronze tree at the old place was 4 meters tall. Jinsha is the heir of Sanxingdui, the same religious vocabulary, the same fish and bird iconography, the same offerings of ivory and jade, but the giants are gone. The thing that was made huge at Moon Bend is not made huge anymore. Jinsha will last a few centuries longer, then it too will fade. The Bronze Age will give way to the Iron Age. The state of Shu will be conquered by Qin in 316 BC and absorbed into the empire that will, a century later, unify China. The plain keeps being cultivated. The rivers keep depositing silt. The walls at Moon Bend are buried under another meter of clay, and another. The fields above them are plowed in spring and harvested in autumn for 30 centuries. People live their lives over the city without knowing the city is there. They build villages on top of it. They dig wells that miss the pits by a few meters, and they pull up clean water and walk back to their homes. They die and are buried in the same soil, 3 meters above the bronze masks. A name in a regional book. A few lines about kings with protruding eyes. The plain forgets without forgetting. A farmer leans on the handle of a wooden hoe in a paddy north of Chengdu. It is summer in the 8th century of our era. The year is around 750. The Tang is the world's largest empire. The capital at Chang'an is the largest city on Earth. 1,200 kilometers to the southwest, on the Chengdu plain, this man is doing what his great-grandfather did and what his great-grandson will do. The hoe strikes something. The sound is wrong. He bends down and works the object out of the wet clay. It is greenish and polished, and the size of his hand. He turns it over. He has no word for it. There are smiths in the local town who work bronze, but this is not bronze. He has never seen anyone make anything like it. He sets it on the dike. By evening, it is in his cooking pot, weighing down a lid. By the end of the year, his son has lost it. 200 kilometers up the gorge of the Yangtze, in a road station on the mountain path that climbs towards Sichuan, the poet Li Bai is writing on a sheet of paper laid flat on a board. He is in his middle years. He is from this region. He is writing one of the most famous poems in Chinese literature, the Shudao Nan. The road to Shu is hard. Yi Shu Xi, Wei Hu Gao Zai. Oh, how perilous, how high. He invokes the ancient kings of Shu, Kan Kong, and the others as figures from the deep antiquity of his homeland. They are matter for poetry. They are the colors of the past that make the present feel old. He does not think of them as people who built a city. 400 years later, in a Song Dynasty monastery library in Sichuan, a copyist sits at a wooden desk. Winter, a brazier of coals at his feet. He is transcribing the Huayang Guoji onto fresh paper for the monastery archive. He reaches the passage on the first king. He copies the 4 characters for protruding eyes without slowing down. He has no opinion about them. The book is preserved. The book is shelved. 600 more years go by. Mongol cavalry rides through Sichuan. The Ming dynasty rises, falls. The Qing dynasty rises. The brick factory will be built. The republic will be declared. The young men of Sichuan will go to the war against Japan, and many will not come back. In every century, somewhere on the Chengdu plain, a farmer's hoe strikes something hard in the wet clay, and the farmer reaches down and lifts a piece of green or yellow stone or a fragment of green metal and turns it in the light and does not know what it is. This is not a forgetting. The plain remembered enough to keep producing the objects at the rate of 1 or 2 a generation. The book remembered enough to keep getting copied. The poets remembered enough to keep naming the kings. It is a misclassification. The fragments were on the shelf. They were just on the wrong shelf. The kings were in the book. They were just in the wrong book. The pieces of bronze were in the soil. They were just under the wrong field. For 3,000 years, the thread was held loosely, by accident, by habit. Then, in 1929, a man named Yan Daoqing dug a ditch. A man stands on a suspended platform inside a translucent plastic shelter. The shelter is the size of a small aircraft hangar. The temperature inside is held at 20 degrees Celsius. The lighting is white LED. The air is filtered. Below the platforms, archaeologists in full white coveralls and respirators and clear visored helmets are working with brushes on what is coming up out of the ash. The man is in his 70s. He has been at this site on and off for 42 years. He was here when the wall was first traced in 1980. He was here when the first pit opened in July of 1986. He was here when the protruding eye mask came out of Pit 2 5 weeks later. He is here now in 2022, watching another protruding eye mask come up out of Pit 3. His name is Chen Xiandan. He is wearing the white coverall and the helmet. He is standing on the suspended walkway above Pit 3, leaning forward with his hands on the rail. A 3D scanner on a robotic arm is sweeping the new mask in slow passes. In 1986, he was in a white short-sleeved shirt, kneeling in the dirt under the open sun of August. In 2022, he is in filtered air under LED light. The mask coming up at his feet is almost identical to the one that came up under his hands then. Same person, same mask, different light. The platform is the first of its kind in the world. It was built to keep the archaeologists from touching the soil. The new pits were located by ground-penetrating radar in 2019. The 17,000 artifacts that have come out of them by 2022 include things the team in 1986 could not have imagined. Silk fragments preserved in the ash, a turtle-shaped vessel with a divinity on its back, more masks, more gold leaf. Chen Xiandan has spoken to Peoples Daily about the new shelters. Each module is equipped with an integrated excavation platform, he said. This basket-like platform helps prevent contamination of both artifacts and soil during the excavation. It is a technical sentence about engineering. It is also the sentence of a man who has spent his life on this site and is making sure what is left of it is recovered with more care than what came first. The work is not finished. The pits are still open. The catalog grows. 3,000 years after the city buried itself, the same person who saw the first protruding eyes come up out of the ash in 1986 is watching the next ones come up. The thread is being carried in real time. What was found at Sanxingdui was a civilization that should not have been a surprise. It had a walled capital city of 3.5 square kilometers, larger than the Shang capital at Anyang. It had a metallurgy capable of casting a hollow bronze figure 2.5 meters tall in one pour, which is harder than anything the Shang attempted. It had a religion with its own complete iconography of trees and birds and dragons and gold-leafed faces with cinnabar in the lips. It had a gold staff. It had in its second pit alone 800 ritual objects whose like exists in no other collection on earth. It flourished for 700 years. It was contemporary with the Egyptian New Kingdom, with the Hittite Empire, with the rise of the Shang, and it was not seen by Chinese history for 3,000 years. That second sentence is the one that matters. The forgetting of Sanxingdui was not a forgetting. The plain kept being cultivated. The pieces kept coming up. The kings kept being named in a book. Tang poets cited them. Song copyists transcribed them. The bronzes were 6 feet below the rice fields the whole time. And the book that named the kings was on the monastery shelves the whole time. And neither one was lost. They were simply not read together. This is a different kind of invisibility than the one the previous episode of this series described. The cities of Cucuteni Tripilia in Eastern Europe were forgotten absolutely. No surviving people remembered them. No surviving text named them. The thread was cut. Recovery there meant building from nothing. Sanxingdui is the other case. The thread was not cut. The thread was misclassified. A regional book of the wrong genre, a line in a poem, a jade fragment in a cooking pot. The protruding eyes were on the shelf, and they were in the soil, and they were in the poems, and the canon did not let them speak to each other. Every canon is a choice. Sima Qian was a great historian working from what he had, and he had to choose, and his choices became the spine of Chinese historical memory for 2,000 years. That spine put the Yellow River at the center. Everything south and west and north of that river became periphery. The periphery had its histories. It just had them in books. The canon did not wait as history. The official history of a civilization is not the history. It is the history that won the fight for the center. Other Sanxingduis are waiting. Some have already begun to come up. The Olmec heads in the swamps of Veracruz came up in the 1860s and were ignored until the 1930s because the canon of Mesoamerica had already named the Maya as the mother civilization. The cities of the Norte Chico on the Peruvian coast were noticed in the 1940s and reinterpreted in the 2000s because the canon of Andean prehistory had not made room for monumental architecture that old. The whole of West Africa before the Atlantic trade is being slowly recovered now because the canon of African history was written in colonial offices that did not look hard. Somewhere, in a regional gazetteer that has never been translated, in a fragment in a museum drawer, in a line of poetry that no specialist has connected to the line of poetry one province over, the next Sanxingdui is sitting on the wrong shelf. The man in the white coverall on the suspended platform is 70-something years old, and he was 30-something when the protruding eyes first came up out of the ash, and the work is not finished. In a swamp in Veracruz in 1862, a worker clearing land for a sugarcane plantation struck something hard with his machete. He thought it was a stone. He dug around it. The stone was the size of a small house. It had a face. He had no word for what he had found. The local people called it vaguely la cabeza, the head. They knew of others scattered through the lowlands, half buried in cane fields and forest. 77 years later, an American archaeologist named Matthew Sterling followed local reports of piedras gigantes across the lowlands of southern Mexico and stood in front of the same colossal head. He recognized it as the work of a civilization the canon of Mesoamerica did not yet include. He took out a notebook. He began to write. The civilization he was beginning to find was 1,000 years older than the Maya. The Maya had been the mother civilization in the textbooks of every museum and every university in the world. They were not. There was another mother. The next episode is being prepared. Every empire ends. The thread does not. Subscribe to The Long Thread. The next civilization is being prepared.